with no license to get through the TSA. And I had to just show my credit cards and stuff. And then I'm also now a business owner. And my credit card is actually, my business is called Undocumented LLC. So when the TSA was looking through my IDs, he was like, what is this? He's like, well, I'm undocumented. And so thus began my really uncomfortable morning. And you know, people here will relate to this. I think the greatest irony about being undocumented in this country is knowing that your life is defined by these pieces of papers, limited and defined by these pieces of papers, all the while knowing in your heart and in your mind that you're more than a piece of paper, right? That's where it gets really interesting. And I'm saying this as y'all are about to receive this piece of paper, this diploma that represents way more than a piece of paper. It represents struggle and pain. It represents incredible struggle and tremendous pain. But we all know that struggle defines who we are and what we become. And we all know that whatever it is we are going through, whatever it is you're going through, someone else is going through it, somebody else has transcended it, someone else has survived it, and that no one struggles alone. We know that that piece of paper represents friends, allies, mentors, teachers. Where's Nancy Juditis? Where is she? Nancy. Can Nancy stand up? So I met this woman 4 years ago, and Cynthia, everybody here knows that she has been a tireless, loud, tireless, relentless advocate for undocumented students at this school. If it wasn't for people like her, people like us wouldn't be graduating. So, and we know that this piece of paper that you're about to get, it represents the sacrifice of all of your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and your aunties and your uncles and your cousins. We all know extended family and immigrant families. It's an entire celebration. It's an entire sacrifice. In the past 4 years, since I outed myself as an undocumented immigrant, I've spoken to maybe 190 colleges in 45 states, traveling all across the country. I'll keep traveling, and I wish that if I could talk to every young undocumented student, if I could look them in the eye and tell them that they have to say yes to themselves. And you are all here today because you all said yes to yourselves. Right? And I would tell them what I tell myself every day. Yossi and I bonded over our love for James Baldwin, my favorite writer. I met the writer James Baldwin while I was actually a student at San Francisco State. I was graduated here with a major in political science and minor in African American studies. And it was in African American studies that I really learned who James Baldwin was. And James Baldwin, one of my favorite quotes from him, is when he said that your crown has already been bought and paid for. Listen to this really closely. Your crown has already been bought and paid for. Your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents, already gave it up for you. They've crossed borders, they've traveled far and wide, they've been called criminals for the crime of providing for their children, they've withstood unjust, inhumane laws. They've done all of these things, it's already done. Now you can love yourself. It's already possible. Your ancestors have already paid for you. And now it's your job to pay for someone else. It is your job to pay for someone else. Love yourself. And I have to be honest with you, that loving yourself part, that took a long time for me. I was a high school graduate in 2000, before there was a DREAM Act, before there was such a thing as an AB 540. I thought I was literally the only non-Latino undocumented person in the state of California, with a name like Jose, which gets really confusing. The only reason I went to San Francisco State University was because I went to a journalism camp that they had here for free for minority journalists. And then when I got a private scholarship to come here, I was asked, well, why are you coming here? Well, because it was the only college that I ever visited. I had never visited another college. And then when it was time to fill out the forms to come to the school, there was no line that said anything about having papers. Or if it did, maybe I skipped it. I just filled it out, and then I got in. I was here from 2000 to 2004. I was one of those really crazy people that wanted to make sure that I was out of here in 4 years, which we all know is a challenge. Right? I graduated in 2004 and then got offered a job at the Washington Post in Washington, D.C. Now, it's one thing to be an undocumented worker hiding in the shadows in San Francisco, but to be undocumented in D.C., that was a little too crazy for my family. My family said, don't do it. My family said, this is too risky. You're trying to do too much. It's enough, just stay here. You have no ID. I had no ID. I had no driver's license, I had nothing. But thankfully to my mentors, they pushed me and they said, you should go. So I did, I went. I decided to live in Washington, D.C. for 5 years. I decided to build a career for myself. And then when I had become successful, at least in the minds of white people, because I thought to be successful you had to do certain things that white people thought that you should do. So I did all those things. Then nothing happened. I was still undocumented. There was nothing solved out for me. So I decided that I was going to take a risk and I was going to out myself, which I did 4 years ago, which has been really, really difficult. It's been difficult because you know how immigrant drama can be like. You know what happens in our communities, right? The kind of attack, right? And the kind of love, sometimes bitter love, that we show for each other. I got attacked by some dreamers who said that I was too whitewashed, or that I was the model immigrant. I don't really know what that means. That I'm the good dreamer. You referred to this, you're referring to the Ivy League dreamers, right? And it was really weird for me because, you know, I'm kind of from the older dreamer generation. We call ourselves elder dreamers. So it was really weird to be attacked by like younger dreamers. And you know, look, I got pretty thick skin, you know? There's nothing like being in a big family of Filipinos to have thick skin. But it was kind of hurtful sometimes to be questioned by my own community. And this is where I met this wonderful man named Yosimar Reyes, who's sitting right there. Yossi, by the way, is the only reason that I'm here today. He asked me to come, and I'm like, of course I'm going to come. So Yossi and I went to some art summer thing. Remember that? It was an art summer thing that we had to like do for artists. We met. We started Facebooking each other. And then I was making a film. I was making this really difficult film. I was supposed to make a film about the dreamers, and then the film ended up being about my mom. About the fact that I hadn't seen my mother for 22 years this August. So in this film, I decided to do something that I really didn't want to do, which is to show people what pain looks like if you haven't seen your mother for 22 years. And Yossi doesn't even know this. He's like the third person that saw an early cut of the film. I showed it to him. And then he said, oh my God, this is crazy. This was your Facebook message right here, Yossi. Finally, you're showing people pain. And so when Yosimar and I became friends, because he saw me as a person. He didn't see me as whatever. He saw He is the kind of friend that I wish for everybody, which is the kind of friend that sees your vulnerability, your insecurity, that finds inspiration in you and vice versa. The kind of friend that is almost painfully honest with you. The kind of friend who pushes you, right? He became that kind of friend to me. And so then a few months later, he sent me this Facebook message, another Facebook message. I have the date right here, Yossi. July 16, 2013, 12:21 p.m., almost 2 years ago. You said, I hope this message finds you well. I don't know if you remember me telling about this campaign. I'm starting to pay for my first semester at San Francisco State. I am writing you in hopes you will be down and helping me raise money. Here's the link. He was fundraising for his college education. I don't know if you remember what happened. A few hours later, I called you and I said, whatever you raise, I'll match. I have supported, like a lot of other people here, I've supported a lot of scholarship foundations. I am so proud to say that Yossi is the first ever student that I have supported myself to get through college. I'm so proud to say that. Don't get me wrong, like we should support wannabe engineers and accountants and lawyers and educators and all of that. But sometimes when you want to become an artist, like a creative writer like Yossi, right? There's not that many scholarships for artists and filmmakers and writers. So this was my way of paying it forward. This was my way of paying the price. And I don't know, Yossi, if you remember this, a few days after you saw the film that I made, you wrote a poem. And you Facebooked it to me. And you said that it was a poem from my mother. You titled it, To Our Mothers on the Other Side. Do you remember this? This is what he wrote. I'm so sorry that I'm sharing it, Yossi. Here it is. Yossi wrote, we have learned to fill our hunger with the idea that one day we will see you again. That one day the earth will shatter, making a roadmap back home. You are the heaven we await for. You are the land we lost, the home we desperately seek to find. You who stand on the other side, surrounded by mud houses and open skies. You are the only hope that one day all of this will rise anew. When I get to see my mom for the first time, I'm actually going to give her a copy of that poem so that she reads it. And I have to tell you, Cynthia and I were just talking about this. I was sitting here and I kept thinking, man, like, I wonder what would have happened if my generation had a graduation like this. If back in 2004 we had a graduation for undocumented students here. Because you know, when we talk about dreamers, we forget about the ones that didn't even make it. I'm talking about our older brothers and our older sisters. I'm talking about the older cousins and the older friends that decided, you know, it was too hard. It was too hard. And I hope that you're thinking about them today and that you're holding them in your heart. And I hope that you know how much you are loved and how much sacrifice went to having you here. And that no piece of paper, not even that diploma, can stop you from being your fullest possible self. It's really, really an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.